Welcome to the 5 More Minutes podcast.
Oh, here we are. What are we, like day 28, 29? I've totally lost track. It is Blur's Day of April 2020, this weird leap year that I saw a meme the other day. 29 days in February and 600 days in March. What a weird year, people. Ugh, oh my goodness. Well, we are going to keep things continuous with the 5 More Minutes podcast. Welcome. I'm Shelly Moore. I am your host. Welcome. So we are here. What can I even tell you? So we've been in our house for days. We're getting to the point where we are wondering what the purpose of our lives are. We are running out of things to talk about with our family. Oh my goodness. Can you even believe this? This is just such an unimaginable scenario for all of us. Anyways, the sun is shining. Well, it is in BC here right now, Vancouver and Bowen Island. So I hope that it is nice where you are too. This month, let me tell you, so much has happened, though, in my little, isolation chamber of my house. So first thing I have to tell you on my list of things is we have been doing our 5 More Minutes book club. And I think last time we were together, I mentioned it. It was, the book is called Uniquely Human by Dr. Barry Prezant. And I always get his name wrong. I'm sorry, Dr. Barry. I'm just going to call him Dr. Barry. And we've been meeting every morning at 9 a.m. On Instagram Live. And let me tell you, it's been so fun. There's been like 200 people showing up. And it's quite funny because we're using the book as the kind of the anchor, but it's just turning into like really funny rants and some really, really meaningful conversation. Like today we had a really great talk about, how we can refer to people with disabilities and, why it might be problematic to use the term special needs or even like diverse abilities, and kind of the implications around all of that. We have some really, really incredible self-advocates that are joining. And I don't know, it's just really turned into this community that I really look forward to connecting with every single day. It's also keeping me having a little routine. So I think I've received some really nice emails from people just, thanking me and appreciating me for having this little morning, we call it the Secret Society. But at the same time, I'm actually really appreciative too, because I'm one in the summer, especially, to kind of forget my purpose, and I end up sleeping too much. And then when you sleep too much, you get depressed. So it's actually kind of keeping me and my brain active and my life a little bit in a routine. So yeah, no, I'm loving that little book club. The exciting thing is that we're almost finished this book up. We should be finishing it within the next couple of days. And we have a next book all lined up. So our next book is going to be Kids These Days by Dr. Jody Carrington. And I have connected with her, who is very excited to kind of be a part of this with us. And so we're going to start that on April 15th. So I've posted a little information about how to be a part of that book club on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. So if you want to join us, all you have to do is come to Instagram at 9 a.m. Vancouver time, and it'll be on there live. But I'm also archiving all of the episodes, so if you can't join us at that time, just go look on the YouTube channel, because we're just going to keep going because it is so fun. The other exciting thing is that last Monday, we released the next 5 More Minute video. Now, here's the thing about the video is when I filmed this, I had no idea that there was going to be a pandemic. And so I didn't really think that this was going to align, this particular video was going to align with the context of society right now. But what's actually kind of interesting is if you've seen it, basically the big idea is that it uses kind of the metaphor of a quote that I saw. I think it's Alexander de Haya. It's Dutch. I'm going to chop up that name. And just really talking about, the metaphor of the garden. And, if a flower is not blooming, it's not the flower that you need to attend to. It's actually the conditions in the soil and the conditions in the environment. And so using that metaphor as a metaphor for classrooms to say, okay, well, if a student isn't thriving or blooming, special education services really often zoom in on the kid and how to fix the kid, as opposed to, wait a second, what if it's the environment that needs support? Now, the interesting thing about this, though, is that making this video, I was thinking that classrooms were the environment. But the part that's fascinating is that it actually is a really good video to describe right now, because the question is, how do we help kids thrive in this distance, continuous, remote learning situation? But we're still very much focused on the kid, as opposed to their entire conditions of learning and existence has changed. And so it kind of is a really good video to remind. I know it really reminded me about, this isn't just about recreating learning conditions, but how do we actually create conditions, period. Like, we have to like create a garden for our kids, because it doesn't exist in the same way as the classroom. And so it's actually kind of a good video for the time, and I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest today, who is just an incredible advocate and parent and just navigator of the world. And we and her have a really good conversation today about just these conditions and how we can help our kids, especially kids who have disabilities, not just thrive, but navigate this new condition that exists that is completely different than a classroom in a school. So my guest today is, ready, drum roll, Tamara Taggart, my friend. Love her. She has become a good friend through this journey of inclusion. I've known her longer than she's known me, which we'll learn about. She used to be in television. She was a news anchor for a long time, and now she is doing some podcasts with Tellus. Just spoke to Arlene Dickinson and Dr. Bonnie Henry. So she's a pretty phenomenal woman and is just an absolute champion for the disability community, because you're going to meet Beckett, who is almost 13 years old and has Down syndrome and is just the happiest, honestly, he's one of the happiest people I've ever met. Whenever I see a picture of him, there's just the biggest smile on his face. And so Tamara has really become a champion in society for how to advocate for our kids. And she says this in the interview, just the importance that she holds of just that everyone in our lives are equal. But also I really like, and I'm not going to give it away, but it actually wasn't Beckett that taught her that. And I think that it's kind of interesting that she's become this champion, and she uses the word captain. So I'm really excited for you to hear our conversation. She is a woman, a strong and positive female role model for the world today. Not just a role model, and person who I admire and look up to very, very much. And so I'm excited for you to kind of have a little listen. I have to apologize because my Wi-Fi kind of cuts out a little bit, but not for very long. And so we fix it. And so hopefully you can find the continuity of the conversation, but we'll do some editing. But sit back, relax, have a listen to my friend and yours, Tamara Taggart, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, so hi.
Hi.
How's quarantine life going for you?
I would describe it as a roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster.
It totally is, right?
A physical roller coaster.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted, emotionally, mentally, physically.
I am feeling
hard.
so guilty because I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I have a month off. I can get my PhD done. Nope. I'm like, I need so many naps. I need to lay in my hammock. Oh, it's hard.
Oh my gosh.
It's super hard.
You're laying in your hammock?
Well, let me tell you. So I moved to Bowen, as you know.
Yes.
And so we have our deck, and we got a hammock, and I'm laying in my hammock every day and not writing a PhD.
So you know what I'm going to do?
What?
My kids are they've been quarantined for 4 weeks now.
It's unreal, yeah.
I am going to bring them over to Bowen and leave them with you, and you will never lay on your hammock again.
It's amazing. We also have a pond with goldfish. So, I mean, we can do science. We can just...
You know what, Shelley?
What?
3 kids equals exhausting.
I can't even believe it. Like, I'm thinking to myself how I'm so thankful that I'm not in my 800 square foot apartment in Vancouver right now, and that we moved to Bowen. So I can't even imagine people living in Vancouver, let alone with 3 children and dogs and animals like yourself.
Well, it's a lot. And I think the thing is we're so used to our kids, going to school or having an activity, whether it be swimming or something. And so, but to find yourselves all in one spot 24/7, and don't get me wrong, there are moments moments where I am so happy, and it's most of the time, right? I am grateful to have, my family. And speaking of which,
do we have a visitor?
Come over here, Beckett. You're gonna sit there? Okay, he'll come over eventually.
No problem.
The thing about Beckett is Beckett does what he wants when he wants.
It's on his time.
I get it, because I'm the same way.
Well, how about while Beckett is hanging out, why don't we do like a little intro?
Yeah.
So why don't we?
I would love that.
So why don't we start with hi everybody? Who is this wearing my favorite color?
Do you want to put the headphones on for a minute? No, you don't. Okay.
Hi, Beckett. How are you?
Can you say hi?
Hi, Beckett.
Hi, Shelly.
Hi, I'm Shelly. It's so nice to meet you on the screen. I hope I get to meet you in real life one day.
Where are you? Where are you?
Oh, you know where I am? I'm on a little island. Oh, gonna try the headphones? Yes. Okay. Hey, Beckett.
Hey, hi.
How are you doing?
That's all you're gonna get, Shelly.
Hey, no, thanks, Beckett. Thanks, Beckett.
You got a giggle. There he goes.
Thank you, friend. Okay, so here I am with Tamara Taggart. Tamara Taggart, tell us who you are.
My name is Tamara Taggart, born and raised in Vancouver. I am a mom of 3. I have 2 girls that are 9 and 11, Zoe and Poppy, and I have a boy who is 12. His name is Beckett. We have 4 pets, and
What are the other 2? What are the other 2? You have 2 dogs and 2 cats?
2 dogs, 2 cats. So we have Penelope, a rescue from Mexico. We have George, who is a big bad Airedale. And then we have 2 rescue cats named Broccoli and Brussels sprout.
Oh, I didn't know about those 2. Okay, so sorry to interrupt. So you used to be in TV?
I used to be in TV, and now I'm not. It's been 2 years, and I am figuring out what my next chapter in life is going to look like.
Totally. Well, I've been noticing you're doing some podcasts with Telus Talks.
Yeah, so
that's cool.
They actually called me up and said, we want to do a podcast, never done one before.
Yeah.
And we want you to host it. What do you think? And I said, yeah.
Cool.
And you know what? It was the next day that we basically were told to go into self-isolation.
No way.
And so it's been great. I've been doing it from our basement and talking to some really interesting people. And it feeds my curiosity. And that's the one thing I really miss from being in news and television is that I'm a curious person. Yeah,
you're a conversationalist, right? Like you're so good. Like that's one thing that I've really learned from you is just like, I could just listen to you talk to people. Aww. Because it's like you've known them. You know what I mean? Like there's no strangeness. I'm like, Tamara Taggart, she knows what she's doing. It's like this used to be your job or something.
I talk to everybody like they are my friend. That's just sort of the way I roll.
You totally do. Ugh. Okay. So now, let me back up the track a little bit. So, Tamara Taggart, I have known you for much longer than you have known me. And we kind of found each other in the social media world, hey?
Mm-hmm,
yeah, kind of. And then we were eventually introduced in person at the Down Syndrome Conference, Canadian Down Syndrome Conference.
Well, no, remember I came to one of your talks at a school.
That's right, that was before.
And I brought some of my girlfriends.
That's right.
And we all have kids with, I think all of us there have a child with Down syndrome that we all came to watch you. We immediately fell in love with you. And
that was such a fun night.
We all decided that we had to be your friend.
Well, we are. And we did. We did become friends. And it was so funny because I did a recent presentation for an organization in Calgary who supports families with Down syndrome. And I'm like, you guys, I don't know if your little mom group is as like presidential as the one in BC, but let me tell you, I want to be part of this club. And because we met up, all the moms at the Canadian Down Syndrome Conference and had happy hour, and I have been dying to recreate this evening for months. And we were going to in a week.
I know. We were going to, and then, the pandemic. So here we are.
Just the pandemic. So then I was just like, you know what? I've been wanting to get you on my podcast since that first day that we met. And so here we are. And what a good time.
Well, I'm really happy you asked me, and it's an honor to be talking to you, because I think that you're pretty amazing.
Thank you, Tamara. Likewise. Okay, so my first question to you is I think that what kind of brought us together is Beckett. And so I want to know about Beckett. Tell me. What do you want the world to know about him?
Well, Beckett is, he's a pretty cool kid. He's 12. He's turning 13. I can't believe it. He's turning 13 in August.
That's amazing. Is he a Leo?
He is a Leo. August 2nd. He is a Leo.
Just like me?
I have 2 Leos.
Yes. Everyone needs a Leo in their life. Everyone.
Well, I'm a Taurus, so there.
Like my mom. Balances us out.
Yeah, so Beckett, Beckett was a surprise. That he wasn't a surprise. His extra chromosome was a surprise.
Fair enough.
And we were pretty scared at first, terrified. And that went away pretty quickly for me. I was, it was a really weird time for me, because when I was pregnant, I was on the cover of some magazines locally. And it was like, Tamara's having her first baby. And I was on TV doing the weather at the time. And it was a big event. And then when he was born, I knew instantly that he had Down syndrome, but nobody said anything to me and until the next day. And,
are you serious?
Yeah, because they didn't know either. And the funny thing is that when I can reflect back on it, my husband too. So my husband, Dave, is half Japanese.
Okay.
So when Beckett was born, the doctor said, "Oh, Dave, what is it?" And he said, "It's a boy, and he looks Japanese." He was so excited.
So cute. Totally. Yeah.
Right. And everybody looked at him and said, "Are you Japanese?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm half Japanese." And because of, there's some physical characteristics
totally
that come with Down syndrome. And so because Beckett had an almond-shaped eye, different things, they were like, "Oh, maybe he doesn't have Down."
That makes
sense.
They were
thinking this. Maybe he doesn't have Down syndrome. Maybe he just, has some
quarter
some
Japanese
qualities.
Totally.
Exactly. So they did a blood test, and then 5 days later we had it confirmed.
No way.
Yeah, it was really, it seemed to take forever. And I'm not going to lie, we were devastated.
Well, and even in that, I can imagine like in those 5 days of waiting, just like what the not knowing, the fear of not knowing, right?
It was so scary for us. And, Dave and I both had Blackberries. So there's not a lot of surfing the internet on Blackberry.
With the little pearl. Yeah.
So, and I didn't look at anything. I really didn't. Yeah. Dave did. He was searching lots of stuff, and there was all of these questions. Anyways, it was confirmed. It was scary. And then I immediately said, okay, we're done. We're not going to be scared. We're not going to cry. We are the captains of Beckett's team. Yeah. And the thing about being a captain is everybody on the team looks to the captain to see how they are feeling.
That's so true.
So if we are going to act sad and scared, guess what? Our parents are going to be sad and scared. Our friends are going to be sad and scared. So nope, not going to happen. So Dave and I just really took this lead, as scary as it was, to just, this is our boy. We love him. He's, and I wrote, it took me 7 years. It took me 7 hours. It felt like 7 years to write an email to all of our friends. And I wrote it out and we sent it to like 200 people. Everybody I worked with, everybody Dave knew everybody. And it was and I've given that email to a lot of people.
This is what I was going to say.
Changed it.
Yeah, well, I was going to say this too, because I think that, you were the captains for your family, but because you had such a public profile, you also became a real champion for the disability community around us, right? Like many people look to you for just guidance and how to be the captain when they have a child with Down syndrome, and expanding even beyond that, right?
I guess it is true in some ways. I remember the first 2 people that I talked to on the phone when Beckett was born. Yeah. And the thing I remember about them, they had kids that were older, but what I remember is when I phoned them, because I got their number from somebody else, or they reached out to me or something, they dropped everything they were doing.
That's
and
huge.
Talked to me for as long as I needed to.
That's beautiful.
And I thought, you know what? I'm going to be this person one day that somebody calls.
You are.
And I was, and I still am. And I said the same thing to, and I mean, you know, a lot of the people that I talk to, them, and you know them. I said the same thing to them. I said, you know what?
Yeah.
Here's what I promise you. I promise you everything's going to be great.
Yep.
I do. I know you can't see this right now, but I promise you it's going to be great. And I promise you that one day you are going to be the person getting this phone call, and you're going to say the same thing. And it really has worked out that way. And we've got this really beautiful community, and I'm really proud of our community.
I love it. I love your community. I'm like, I would like a child with Down syndrome so that I can be like an authentic part of this community, because it's just such a beautiful group of people. I just love it. It is.
I've met the most... Like, I have these friends that I would have never, ever met before, right? Here we are. And we never talk about Down syndrome. We never talk about, like, that's not what it's not our identity. It's not our kids' identity. Yeah. It's just, they just happen to have an extra chromosome.
It brings you together. Your shared experience. So good. Okay, so. Yeah. This is a unique time in our lives right now. We talked a little bit about it, this whole social distancing thing. And, if a lot of my podcasts, well, I try and connect all my podcasts to the 5 more minute videos, which you watched today. And the videos were all filmed before I knew there was going to be a global pandemic. Okay. So,
yes. I mean, how did you not know this, Shelley?
I mean, but it's so funny because the one that I just released for spring, I filmed that like probably a week before I got home. Do you know what I mean? Like, it is close, but it had to be next because it's about spring. Like, I can't show that one in December, right?
No, you can't.
And so then I started rewatching this, and my cousin does all the production. He's in New Jersey, and so he's producing this video, and I'm like, so the topic of this month's video is about spring, and it's about how do we create conditions in the soil for our garden, as opposed. I love it. Because when we're in the garden, we never put the emphasis of success on the flower. We put it on what are the conditions to create success for flowers to grow. And so this whole metaphor about what are the conditions that our kids need in classrooms, and how do we support those conditions so that our kids can blossom and our kids can bloom. But the thing that's weird right now is that all of the conditions have changed for everybody, right? Yeah. And so it's bringing up some really key questions, not just only in, we're now not only just supporting classrooms, now we need to support homes and families and parents, but also it's bringing up a whole bunch of questions about why we do the things we do in education in general, right? So my first question for you, and can we talk about Beckett? Because I know that you're an expert in terms of Beckett. Like, if you were to think of the conditions of school, the conditions of learning if Beckett was at school, okay? And, what would you say works for him to allow him to be successful and to grow?
Number 1 is routine.
Oh, yes, good one.
100% routine. He needs routine, and he loves his routine. Beckett loves school. Yeah. We've been at the same elementary school since kindergarten. He's in grade 7 now, and he is one of the most popular guys there. Oh, I can imagine. He has so many friends. It's wonderful. So friendship is also really important. So we have routine and friendship. Yeah. And he's a visual learner. So he likes, he gets all of his lessons are very visual, right? And he's a very social boy. Yeah, he is. So, and this is what's been hard, right? As we're now not in class. So, and it's what's been the hardest for me. But I would say in his classroom setting, of which he just thrives, he always has, routine, friendship, the social aspect of it, and his responsibilities at school. He has responsibilities there. They all do, right? All kids there have responsibilities, and he knows what his are, and he's very good at them. And
just like the high expectations that come with having roles and responsibilities in a community.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And his responsibilities and roles may be very different than another child his age. Yeah. But they're still his, and they're still very important to him. And that's why he has done so well in the elementary school setting, because they know him. They've known him since he was 5. They're a very inclusive school.
Yeah.
And it's a smaller school, you know, it's and so, you know, he's in a portable, and he, you know, he has his freedoms now of being able to, with a watchful eye, go into the school. You know what I mean? Things are nice. So, yeah, it's even, you know, when I even think about his lunchtime routine at school, right? Like, he's got that routine. They all do. They go into the gym, they all eat, and then they go play. Yeah. So those things are all gone now, right? But in school, that's kind of his that's what goes into his soil, right?
Well, if it makes sense, if you say like friendship, like routine, visuals, and friendships, those are all things that he can't manifest himself. Do you know what I mean? Like, none of us create those things. Like, those are 3 really good examples of, those are conditions of an environment, not something we can change in a person.
Yes.
Right? And so I think those are really, really good examples. So then my next question was, you know, now that these conditions have shifted, and now, you know, he's now in his home with his family and his dogs and his pets and, you know, his life, you know, how or has those conditions shifted for him, or what in the environment has had to shift so that he still can be successful in this weird time right now?
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's all changed.
Yeah.
It's all been thrown out the window.
Yeah.
We haven't figured out a routine. His friendships are obviously still there, but now they're through video. Right. It's not the same. No. It's very hard for him to understand. He has, and the visuals, you know, I've got his books and stuff like that, but it's really hard, Shelley. And this is probably the hardest thing right now for me and my husband, and for Beckett. And it's, you know, my girls are able to go online independently with their teacher and learn. They can do that, you know, at 9 and 11. And when they're done with their teacher, then they go and they work on their work. It's really quite amazing to watch. Beckett is not the same. The iPad to him is for fun. Yeah. You know, so, and when he's talking, so the first day that we arranged, so we're trying to take baby steps. Yeah. That's what we're trying to do. Like, and I'm talking baby. I feel like I'm starting all over again. And it's causing me enormous stress. Yeah. It is definitely what keeps me up at night. No, for sure. And so it's, you know, but the first time he talked to his support workers and his teacher, he wouldn't come to the computer. Yeah. And he kept saying, bye-bye from a distance, right? And so then I hung up from them and I went in the living room and he was crying and I had to hold him while he cried. Yeah,
it's so confusing.
Because he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And to him, everybody has abandoned him. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, they were there and now they're gone. Yes. No, totally. And I think this is, I think a lot of people are feeling this. Like, I'm getting so many messages from families and teachers and just, and this kind of this, like, and I don't even know if anyone has actually said this to anybody, which is why I'm trying to be vocal about this. But like, what is the goal? Like, because these conditions have shifted so much, like, what is the goal within these new conditions, right? And is it to recreate the goals of a classroom, or have the goals shifted because it's like we're repotting plants? You know what I mean? Like, well, does the goal shift, right?
The garden is starting from scratch.
Totally. And so when you're thinking about, you're completely shifting the environment and the conditions, the goals for those plants have to also change. Right? And so maybe the goal isn't necessarily that they're in full bloom. Maybe the goal is for them to sprout. Like, maybe the goal is for them to just recalibrate. And I think this is such a question that I'm curious about from a parent perspective, because I know that a lot of like kids are getting overwhelmed, a lot of teachers are getting overwhelmed, a lot of parents are getting overwhelmed, trying to almost like recreate learning conditions in a classroom, as opposed to being like, wait a second, you can't recreate them because we've completely changed them, right?
My expectations, and you know, when it is a roller coaster for me, right? My expectations are changing, and my reality is changing. So I know my son, and I know that being online too much is not good for my son.
No. It's not good for anybody. And
it's not, right?
That can't be the goal of this. Yeah.
No. And so I have to be with him when he's learning. I cannot leave my son in a room with, while he's doing that. He will fool around and, he'll show everybody his bum. He will, you know what I mean? Like he's always looking for a laugh. Yeah. That's the thing about Beckett. Yeah. He's always looking for a laugh because he's a funny guy.
Yes.
He's a funny guy. So I don't want to say I'm lowering my expectations because I'm not lowering my expectations. No. But I know that what happened in the classroom 2 months ago is not going to happen in our house.
For anyone. Yeah.
No.
You probably saw this tweet, but it was just like, this isn't even a distance or a homeschooling situation. No. This is a social isolation and we're trying to keep people engaged situation. Keep them engaged and keep them connected.
Exactly. Yeah. So for Beckett, and again, every kid is different.
Yeah.
The most important thing for me and Beckett's learning is that I keep up his speech therapy. That is number one for me.
Yeah, that's important to know.
That's actually number one, number two, and number three for me.
Yeah, I love that.
Now, that's going to be different for other people, sure. Maybe that's not number one. Maybe their child doesn't need any help with that. For me, that is super important. So my main priority with Beckett is his speech therapy so that takes over for me for math or reading or anything. Cause he needs to work on that because if he regresses, I am losing all of the hard work he's put in for his speech therapy.
And that makes sense because, like when this first started, they didn't call it home learning. They didn't call it homeschooling. They called it continuous learning. Right. And so what's going to be the most important skill to continue so that when we pick back up, we're not going to lose those. So, I mean, that's why like people are targeting the big ones, right? Literacy, speech therapy, whatever those big rocks are. And so, even just like giving people permission to let go of the other stuff, to be like, this isn't about recreating. This isn't about, because the other thing too is that like people are learning how to be distance educators overnight. Parents are learning how to be teachers and support staff overnight, right? And so just that like understanding that the goals have shifted because the conditions have shifted.
They have. And the other thing is, not every family has access to a computer or 100%. A laptop or, strong Wi-Fi or whatever it may be. Our kids have 2-3 jobs. None of them are full-time. They have 2-3 jobs. And obviously a very scary time for them. But we can't assume that everybody has access to the technology that is needed, right?
Yeah.
And so here's what I know is important for Beckett. He loves his 2 support workers. He has one in the morning and then he has another one in the afternoon. And he loves his teacher and he talks about them all the time. So we're trying to get in this routine where at 11 o'clock every day, he does a video check-in with them.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Right? And that's our baby step now.
And I think
that's it right now.
That's okay. And I love that he is able to connect to his support workers because there's like some places where the support workers aren't connecting with kids, and it seems like an obvious like support that we would keep in place. I'm kind of surprised.
Listen, the thing, I am one of those people that I would go to the wall for our support workers. And I believe that support workers are treated poorly by the school board and by, a lot of people. They're treated like glorified babysitters.
Yeah.
And they're not.
No, they're not.
And so I will always advocate for them to get paid more money. They don't get paid
100%.
enough money. They should all be full-time. They should all we could do a whole other podcast just on that.
Absolutely.
But I think that a lot of them are just scraping by money-wise. And now they're in a situation too where we're all trying to figure out this new world together. And it's hard because many of our kids learning online doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so right now we're just, it seems like nothing, checking in at 11 o'clock every day. But that's where we're starting.
Yeah.
That was week 1.
Yeah.
And next week is week 2. And hopefully we can add in a little bit more, right? And see what happens. But, Beckett's attention span isn't there for it online.
Yeah.
And we still need to figure out how to make it all work.
Yeah. And I think one of the big questions that have come out is, and this again is for, I think, a lot of learners where they either don't have access or don't have the digital technology skills to be able to interact for a long time, is kind of this assumption that distance learning has meant that you have to do your learning online. Right? As opposed to, wait a second, you can have your check-ins, but there's a lot of activities you can do just in your home with your family, right? And so this has been a really big question in terms of like, what can we do to support the environment of our kids right now, especially our kids who need extra support. It's almost just like thinking, rather, instead of thinking, how are we going to support these kids in their homes, how do we support homes to support kids, right? And whether that means is supporting parents, supporting siblings to be able to just stay interactive, whether that's speech therapy or literacy. Like, you don't need a computer to be able to continue to be engaged and continue to target kind of those big area goals,
Yeah. And again, then, I agree with you 100%, but then that the complication of that is, right? Here, you have parents that are freaking out about, how am I going to pay rent or my mortgage or buy groceries or I was just laid off from my job and this and that. This is such a weird time. So weird. And none of us, we weren't ready for it. I know I wasn't. I didn't even know that this was a possibility. It never crossed my mind before because I was just living my chaotic day by day, right? And so, parents already have this enormous stress on them. Most of us do. Yeah. And now it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to
now they have
leave my kid behind. And how do I do this? And how do I, it's hard, right? Having a kid with a disability is hard sometimes. And when I love having my family close to me and I'm one of those people that I'm, enjoying the small things and all that sort of stuff. It's still hard. Like I went and sat on the toilet the other day with the seat down and locked the door just so I could have 10 minutes to myself. And within 2 minutes, my 11-year-old was knocking on the door to tell me that she opened a new bottle of syrup. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even care. Like, open it. You know what I mean? It's just like, you don't have to announce it's just so funny, right?
Oh,
and here we are 24/7. And it's so all I can do is laugh about it and try not to stress about it and pick one thing that's important to me. And for me right now, that one thing is Beckett's speech.
And I think that's actually really good because my next question for you is going to be like, if you were to give advice to families in terms of, supporting their kids at home, like kids who have extra needs or kids with disabilities, like what would be kind of like the one thing you would tell families? And I think that you kind of just said it. It's like, choose one thing. Baby steps, one thing. Like, what is the most important thing to you and your family and to the longevity of being a learner? And I think that's a really good one.
And the other thing, Shelley, is I'm one of those people where I always look at a situation. I go, okay, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we're all trying to stay healthy and safe, right? So let's not even bring that into it. But when I'm thinking about the learning, right? We've got till June, schools till June, apparently. And I don't think we're going back. I really don't.
No, I don't
think it's going to happen. And so what if my kids didn't do any online learning for the next 3 months?
Yeah.
They're not in grade 12. Like, that's a whole other ballgame.
Oh,
high school is a different ballgame, and I'm not there yet, and I can't speak to high school.
Yeah.
But elementary school wise and where we're at right now, Beckett's missing out on his grade 7 graduation, and his grade 7 grad pictures were supposed to be last week and all of those things. I'm going to not think about that stuff. But even if my kids just read and work on speech and we're learning how to make bread, and we're learning how to, how flour and water and some sourdough starter can,
I love that the bread is taking off. Like everyone is making bread.
But I mean, if that's the most that I do for the next 3 months, and then of course summer vacation, they're gonna be
fine. There was an article that I read that was saying how wouldn't it be phenomenal if in a longitudinal research they see that this generation of kids actually thrived because they got to be home with their families and play and not have that pressure of, because one concern that people are having all over the world around kids right now is the increase in anxiety, right? Like there's so much negotiating of mental health concerns, and all of a sudden the whole world has stopped, and it's kind of forced us to kind of pay attention to what is all of this noise? Like, what do we really need?
You have completely nailed it. My neighbor also has 3 kids, and we're all, good friends. And she said to me, she goes, my kids have never been happier. And
Isn't that interesting?
Mine too.
Right?
Yeah, and she has a child with a lot of anxiety. I have a child that has anxiety. Lord knows I have my fair share. And I will say that I have noticed a massive difference in my kids.
Isn't it? It's so fascinating to me.
It really is. Here's the other thing. There's 2 things I wanted to actually ask you. Is it fair to worry, because that's what I do, I worry about everything. Is it fair to be concerned, let me say, that, we're going to come out on the other side of this pandemic, a different society?
Yeah.
For the better, I hope.
I think so.
I hope so.
Yeah.
We might look at a lot of things different, right? Like we might start looking at virtual healthcare more. I know I've downloaded the app and it's a great way to, connect with the doctor pretty fast, and I don't have to go into an office right now. Education, we're doing it online right now. Are we going to get to a point where maybe this is, a way of learning? I don't know. Maybe we are. But could this possibly let schools off the hook for inclusive learning?
Yeah, no, and that's a question. That is a question that has really come up. I've really thought about that. I think the saving grace in all of this is that everyone is struggling by not having connection. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Not just the kids who have disabilities. And I think if anything, what it's shown is the importance of connection between kids, right? Because even if you have all 30 kids on your screen, you can see them, but they don't have each other. And so when I really think about this, I think, sometimes we see a classroom as it's this community that's receiving information from this teacher. It's an old way of thinking about education, as opposed to what I'm really hoping comes out of this whole societal meltdown that's happening right now, is that that's no longer how people learn. Right? People learn by interacting and by transacting and creating new things together within a community. And a teacher is a part of that, but they are not the source all the time, right? And so this kind of connects to curriculum theory that we know is already a more... I would say recent understanding of how people learn, but schools are so stuck. They're so stuck in this model of, I'm going to bestow upon you knowledge because you're empty. As opposed to in this world that we're connecting, what we're realizing is that kids need each other to learn, not just a teacher. And so with that though, is that if we're really going to facilitate kids learning from each other, they can't all be the same. Because the more diverse these communities, the more we can transform our learning into something that's deep learning. It's deep learning.
Yes, and I agree with you 100%, and I feel the same way as you 100%. But the
practical side,
I think to myself, okay, well, it always comes down to the dollars and cents, especially when it comes to different learners, when it comes to the disabled community. We know this, right? From experience. But I also think that this is a chance to we are being given this gift to look at it different. And I'm hoping that more people will see it the way that you and I see it.
I hope so.
How important this is.
Yeah.
But it's something that I do think about a lot now.
And I think our context in BC is also really important. I mean, I wouldn't be so confident saying that if we were in other parts of the world where I think the dollar and cost of things, I mean, it does trump a lot. In general, like cost.
Don't use that word.
I know. I don't know what another one is, though.
I
know. Override. Every time I say it, and I'm like, I need a new word. In many places, the dollar overrides the goal. Yes. And although, like, we have a very long and deep history in British Columbia of tensions between governments and funding and teachers, what I do think that we do have going for us in British Columbia is we are absolute leaders in inclusion, and we are absolute leaders in competencies. And I do not know how we can meet those competency goals in isolation. And I do not know how we can meet those competency goals digitally. I think digital tools and technology is a tool, but it in itself is not the garden.
100%. And speaking of gardens, so something that I wanted to do was I thought, oh, this is good. I ordered online some seeds.
Me too.
Did you? Yeah. And so the kids and I are I'm going to give them each a little thing on the deck where they can grow beans and peas and spinach and lettuce.
That's so cool.
And that's about it, right? And we'll just see how it grows because, we weren't doing things like that when we were living our busy lives 2 months ago.
No, we
weren't
sure weren't
thinking about that, right?
Yeah.
Like that would have never happened. It would have been on the list of things to do.
Who has time?
And all of a sudden now we have time to do things that are really important.
They're really and
connections.
This is what I hope is if there was one takeaway that I hope we take from this in homes, in families, in education, in just society, is how much we need to connect with people, how much learning does not have to look one way for everybody, how learning is interactive, and how we need to make time for this to happen in every place in our lives and not just the classroom when our kids go to school for 6 hours.
Exactly.
Like it happens everywhere.
I think the biggest challenge, though, for parents like me, well, I know it's a challenge in my house, and I know with some of my friends too. It's Beckett loves to have the iPad, right? Like he loves the iPad, and we were in this habit where we kept his iPad downstairs charging, and he would get up. Like he was getting up at 5 a.m. just so he could go down there and watch, Teen Titans Go on the iPad.
Yeah.
And then I would wake up and get down at like 7 and the battery would be dead. And I'd be like, Bud, what were you doing?
Strategic. Right? That's pretty strategic.
No, he knows, right? So what we've just tried in the last week is I said I hide the iPads now every night.
Yeah.
They're in my closet underneath all my dirty clothes on the floor. And then I told Beckett, I said, you only get the iPad at 4:00. From 4:00 to 5:00, you get the iPad.
Yeah.
And I thought he was going to really hate me for it and really resist it. And he's actually been okay with it.
It's the routine.
I think it comes back to that routine.
100%. That's his strength. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, man, this is so good.
Right? So it's playing to his strength, right?
That's exactly what it is. If he thrives in routine, how do we pull that in? So I'm reading a book right now for book club. I do a book club every morning at 9 a.m.
I know.
And so the book we've been reading is Uniquely Human by Dr. Barry Prezant. Have you read this book?
I have not.
It is, it's specifically talking about the autistic community, but there are some gems in there. And what I love about it is that it's changing the narrative of disability away from we need to make these kids comply to how do we find those parts of our kids that they thrive in and use it both to their benefit and our benefit to help them learn and grow. Like it's all about the garden. The next book is, do you know Jodi Carrington?
No.
Jody Carrington is like she's an up and comer in BC, but she's very established in Alberta. She's a psychologist, and she wrote a book called Kids These Days, and that's our next book club book starting April 15th. I'm gonna read it. No, totally. Jody Carrington, Kids These Days. She also does a little live broadcast every morning, and so I've connected with her, and so that's gonna be our next book.
Well, I'm going to read it. So how do I join this book club?
So on Instagram, it's every morning at 9 a.m., except for Sundays. And it's on live. And it's turning into kind of just like Shelley commentary and ranting. But so it's quite humorous.
I'm in for it.
Okay, 9 a.m.
Can we do it during happy hour?
You know what? We might have to set up another one. Tamara and Shelley happy hour. Where we solve the world's problems. Oh, exactly. It's so good. It's so good. Okay, I have one last question for you. And this is a question I ask to everybody on my podcast. Uh-oh. Okay? Because I like to see how people answer this question differently. So this is your question. Given who you are, because everyone comes to this podcast with the entire history of their world in this moment. So given who you are and the life you've lived, why is inclusion important to you?
Inclusion has always been a part of my fabric of who I am. So I don't know any different. I was inclusive before I had my son.
Yes.
But what my son has taught me is that we all have something to teach each other. And, inclusion... Shelley, I hope we come to a day where
it's not even a
use
word.
The word inclusion.
Yeah.
So why is it important to me? Oh my gosh.
It's a good one, right?
It is a good one. Why is it important to me? I don't know why it's important to me, to be honest with you, because I don't know my life without it.
You know what? It's so funny you say that because I'm doing my PhD research right now.
Yeah.
And I've been asking kids, so my research was in high school classes, and I'm asking kids, what's it like to be in a classroom with a kid with a disability? And one kid looked at me and he's like, this question is kind of like you asking me why water is wet.
Yes.
Isn't that so good? Way. Yeah. It's like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean?
I feel ridiculous that I can't answer your question, but
I love it.
I don't have an answer because I don't, all I can say to you is it just is important. It's who I am. It's who my life is. It's who my entire community is. Yeah. It's who I've always been.
And I think it kind of really gets to that point of this isn't just something you do. This is something who we are. Like it's something that we are.
Well, it's funny that you say that because somebody a long time ago told me that I was an egalitarian. And I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
Is that bad?
Yeah,
and
totally.
I went and looked it up, and it's just somebody who thinks that everybody is equal.
Well, okay.
and then I was like, you know what? Yes, I am.
Yes, I am that. Thank you.
You're right, I am. And so I've always thought everybody's equal. I always think that I am no different than the person that is working at the grocery store through this pandemic. That's for sure.
It is how we're going to get through this pandemic. Oh my goodness. Tamara Taggart, time just went like this.
Oh, Shelley.
It's so fun. Well,
eventually I'll make my way over to Bowen Island.
One day we'll have a little mom's retreat and we'll have a happy hour. We've got a pub here.
You do?
Oh, yeah. No, you know what's so funny is okay, do I have this right? Your dog comes to Bowen, but you've never been to Bowen?
That's right. Yeah, George has gone to the Bowen Island Dog Ranch. Yeah.
You're going to have to come with George one day.
I will. I can't wait.
You can lay in the hammock.
I will. With
totally.
A cocktail.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, Tamara Taggart, thank you for joining me this afternoon during this pandemic.
Yes.
And I have one more thing for you to do, so don't hang up, okay?
Okay.
Okay, do you want to just say bye to everybody?
Bye. Thank you. Be safe. Be well.
Tamara Taggart, she's so cool. I want to be her when I grow up. Isn't she rad? Oh man, she's such like a super mom. She's a super woman. I love her. She's just has such a positive influence in this planet of ours. But also just like she speaks from the heart, and she's like just has such incredible experience to share. And I just love her. I love her. So I really thank her for taking time out of her day on this Good Friday to hang out with me a little bit, and Beckett, you as well, coming to say hi. It was so cute because we were on Zoom, and so he had his little headphones on, wearing green, looked so great. So just a few takeaways from my conversation with Tamara. I think the biggest one that I'm really getting from our conversation, but also just like in the world right now, is, you know what, friends, we need to go easy on ourselves. Like the world right now is not what any of us are used to. And it actually is a really good kind of example of, you know, just the dysregulation that a lot of our kids feel when things are unpredictable. And, you know, a lot of our kids, this is their everyday, you know, or even like a lot of our families who have kids who are negotiating health impairment, and, you know, just the worry that they have of not being able to just navigate the world freely. And so I think this is a really huge exercise in empathy for all of us, but just to kind of give you an idea of, it's hard. It is hard work. And so we need to kind of go easy on ourselves and our kids, and know that the goal is not to recreate school for kids right now. This isn't distance learning. We're surviving a pandemic, which hasn't happened in any of our lives. So I think, you know, if you're a parent, or if you're a teacher, or if you're an advocate out there listening to this, let's be really, really gentle with ourselves, and let us lay in the hammock, and let us, you know, spend a little too much time on screen time, and, you know, get out there and plant your gardens, and, you know, like just, you know, be together. And I think, you know, one thing that we talked about in the interview that I'm really, really hoping comes out of this is just some of those really big ideas about the importance of connection, and the importance of, you know, how much we need each other, and that, you know, technology is a tool, but it is not itself the garden. And I think that's one thing that I'm going to put in my pocket. Tamara reminds us about sometimes the struggle that families are going through right now, about, you know, this whole change in routine that has happened. And then on top of all of this, they're kind of being expected to be a teacher. And I think that she's absolutely right. This whole idea of like, people aren't sure about their income. They're not sure about their rents and their mortgages. Like, so to also put on top of that they need to, you know, maintain these educational standards that are unrealistic. I think we need to really, really pay attention to that. But also, my friends, we need to go easy on our teachers, because we are navigating unfamiliar territory. I know that distance learning as a concept has been around for a long time, but, you know, even these conditions are not the conditions of different distance learning. This is brand new. I've been talking to some teachers who are like, this is harder than my first year of teaching. And if you have ever been a first year of teacher, you know that says a lot. First year is hard work. And, you know, I'm talking to teachers who are they're working 24/7. And, you know, and I know that that's because they're feeling pressure from parents, and they're feeling pressure from administrators and school districts and society to make this okay for kids. And I think I saw a tweet the other day that said, that one district in the States, they were getting mad because they wanted to make sure their teachers were still only taking 30-minute lunches. And I'm like, this is not the time, friends. This is not the time. This is a time of choose your big one. Choose the big one that you want to continue learning with. We have to choose our battles right now, and that is not one of them. So if you're an administrator or a school district or a parent, let's support our teachers. Drop off Starbucks at their house. Put some hearts in your windows with some teachers' names in there too, because you know, they're supporting our kids right now, and deserve a little bit of applause, like our healthcare workers. And so I salute you, educators, support staff, and administrators who are working so hard. And so let's just share the love. Let's lift each other up. If you are a student out there, Oh my goodness, make sure you leave some time to feel the sun on your face. We've been doing little challenges with our book club every day, and it really helps me, just reminds me about what's really important right now. And I know that it's hard, and I know people are stressed, and I have a cousin who won't be able to have grad, and so I know those things are really disappointing, but let's stay connected, build each other up, and just know that we're going to come out of this stronger. So I'm really proud of everybody. I want to thank everyone for connecting on Twitter and YouTube and with the book club, and please join us if you want to. And I want another really big thank you for Tamara Taggart, who is just a grounding force for many people in our community. And so find your Tamara out there. Find your Tamara. Listen to them. Take their words of advice. And you know what? This is your challenge. I want you, no matter where you are, I want you to bake some cookies. I want you to watch a movie. I want you to put your feet up. I want you to have a bubble bath, whatever it is to you that calms you down. And just take a minute for yourself and remind you that we're going to be okay. And I know that this is a time right now where we can't hear that enough. So I just want to thank you for tuning in. And we will keep in touch. You'll keep in touch online. And I will have another podcast for you in about 2 weeks. We're going to continue focusing on distance learning, because I know that's a big question for people right now. And we're going to kind of talk to some teachers in terms of what we can do to make this manageable for families, but also for teachers. So stay tuned for that. And I will, my friends, talk to you soon. Thanks for listening, everybody.
The 5 More Minutes podcast is produced by Shelley Moore and Paul Madsen. You can find the 5 More Minutes podcast on iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on 5moreminutes.com.